Good evening, everybody. It's Alan Lowe, and here we are in the Flagler Voice studio. This is the I Told You Show, episode 13. Hard to believe it's episode 13. We have two great guests in the studio tonight, so you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to the entire thing. We're going to discuss Amendment 3 and some other topics. Stay tuned. And welcome back. Before we get into it tonight, I'd just like to say that I'm sure most of you know that I have a lawsuit against the city, and I'm suing the city for the Amendment 1 currently on the ballot, where they want you to vote to give up your right to vote on how much money the city can borrow, how long it will take to give it back, and also to vote to give up your right to vote. You won't be able to vote on it anymore. So essentially, you're handing over the purse strings. So vote no on Amendment 1 and probably all the other amendments as well. But we'll get into that in a second. In the studio with me tonight is Roland Klee, and he has an amazing bio that he'll discuss with us just in a minute. We're going to discuss Amendment 3. And also in the studio tonight is Michael Feldbauer, see, I can pronounce it correctly, from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation. So let's start with you, sir.
So I'm Roland Klee. I'm a retired community service officer from a major Florida police department. I got to serve in patrol, investigations, training, and chief staff during my service there. And doing what I love now. I write a blog for law enforcement officers, but everything's written where there's no esoteric language. Everybody can understand exactly what the issues of policing are and how it relates to them as people. So it's not written for professional police officers, although they appreciate it too. But and it's found at www.americanpeaceofficer.com. On Substack, it's a subscription model, and so I have plenty of free content and plenty of premium paid content. So I'd love for you to check it out and subscribe. I also own the command staff consulting business, and I help local governments with problems ranging from accreditation of their fire department to having a community CAP program.
Excellent. Well,
very
welcome,
very
Roland.
in-depth.
I'm glad you were able to make it here tonight.
Yeah. So
And I'm Mike Feldbauer.
There you go. Go
For
ahead.
those who don't know me, and there's only probably two or three of you, I am on the Flagler County Drug Court program. I'm on the drug court team, and I also run the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation, which is to help people in recovery. And we've expanded that into educating our community and what's going on in the world of substance abuse. And tonight's topic is right on bullseye for that. So, Roland, you and I have had multiple conversations about, and we're talking tonight about Amendment 3 on the state portion of the ballot. And that is, I'm gonna let you intro.
Thank you very much. It's something I have been keeping my eye on since it was approved as a ballot initiative back in March or April. I wrote probably the first negative op-ed against it. It was published here in the Palm Coast Observer and the Ormond Beach Observer, where I said it's just the wrong law at the wrong time. And one of the reasons why I think it's the wrong law at the wrong time is just the current climate. When I was working for the police department, we'd get about 7 or 8 pieces of paper in the morning on our desk up in the chief's office, and they're called event sheets. So it was significant events that would happen. And in 2013, I saw one of those pieces of paper. I'd go through those for the chiefs and the deputy chiefs. I got in early, and I was like, I saw that we had seized some heroin out of a car, and I was like, heroin. I hadn't seen that in a while. But since then, we've seen the rise of fentanyl in our communities, and we've seen record-breaking numbers of overdoses throughout our country. And I've got some data on that, is that the provisional data from the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics indicates that there were an estimated 107,000 drug overdoses during 2023, and that was a decrease of 3% from 111,000 deaths in 2022. So we've never seen deaths at that level. And when I came on in 1994, we had crack epidemic was going on, and there were empty lots on U.S. Highway 441 where you couldn't let a kid walk through it because there was just so much drug paraphernalia in the
Yeah.
ground and in the soil. And at that time we saw that people were losing their lives. But when I say losing their lives, they weren't dying. They're dying slowly, but that's where we got the term crack houses. And family members would actually go to these abandoned houses and go look for their relatives. I had an office in a 7-Eleven where we did reports, and I could just basically leave the door open, and people would keep coming in and saying, I lost my car. I was like, no kidding, you lost your car. I've been looking for it for 3 days. Well, they had traded their car for crack.
Ah,
They had rented their car out for crack so that they could do it. They didn't have any cash to give them, so they gave them their car, and with the promise that the drug dealer would return it to them. So that was the drug epidemic then, but it didn't have the death toll that we saw. But it was still enough to induce Congress to enhance the penalty for crack cocaine over powder cocaine at that time. And it was also a major driver on the 94 crime bill, which is, I should be thankful for. I think I was one of the ripple effects waves of getting hired due to that bill. But all of these things are happening at that time. The Congressional Black Caucus is demanding that the rest of Congress approve that crime bill, and it's since been attributed to quote unquote mass incarceration. Well, that's not accurate, but it has been
Hmm.
attributed to that. But during that time, it caused a great deal of cultural change. We've never seen a death toll like this for anything other than war. And if you think about the times that we've been attacked as a nation, in Pearl Harbor, we lost about 2,300 American lives on that very day. On September 11th, on that very day, we lost more than 2,900 American lives. Both of those things resulted us going overseas and going to war for years and years and years. And our death toll right now, every month, is greater than that. So the reason why I say it's the wrong move at the wrong time, why would we put a drug liberalization bill on the ballot when we're seeing unprecedented amount of damage from
mm,
drugs in this country at this time?
You're
yeah.
100% right on target. And for those of you that are listening here in the Flagler County area, people need to know that over the last 5.5 years, Flagler County has ranked between second and 10th highest overdose county in the state of Florida based on population. One of those years, we were the highest overdose death county based on population. Why? Exactly from what Roland's been talking about. The fentanyl crisis, they're putting in everything. Okay? You can't pick up now if they get somebody that's overdosed and they run a check on them, and they'll find out whether it was marijuana, whether it was crack, whether it was cocaine. It all had fentanyl in it. It's mixed in there. So it's obviously it's a crisis. And what we're looking at with Amendment 3 at this particular time and a juncture, just like Roland said, this isn't the time to do that. This is not the time to do that. I posted that I was voting against it, and somebody posted on my poster and said, "Well, listen, we got alcohol, we got this, we got that." I said, "You're right." And we tried to get rid of the alcohol way back when. It didn't work. It's much more difficult to get rid of something than it is to approve it. Once you've approved it, if you find out the truth later on, to get rid of it is near impossible. And we have to be very cautious on this particular ballot, on this particular amendment. Because if it's approved, okay, and what we're hearing from law enforcement throughout the country and what we're hearing from the drug recovery world, this is going to be highly dangerous.
It's dangerous in more than one way for youth, especially. So you're going to have a much worse mental health outcomes for youth, even up to suicide. So they did a study in not Denmark, I think Finland, and the study actually tracked THC concentration and teen suicide for people that had cannabis use disorder, and it was a track. I mean, it wasn't a correlation; it was a causation of of these uh, of these things. One of our Mike, one of our mutual friends, his favorite place in the world used to be Durango, Colorado, and he now thinks I can't even go back there
That's right.
anymore because the whole place has turned into just a terrible, like a toilet, with all these people, all the homeless, all the people on the streets. There's no pleasure in being in Durango, Colorado for him anymore. And then when we're talking about youth outcomes, I did not know until recently what a trigger this was for anybody with anxiety and anybody with paranoid schizophrenia. If you have paranoid schizophrenia and you start adding THC to it, it's really like kicking a bucket of gasoline onto a fire.
You're, you're right there, because I can remember. I mean, I come at it from years ago, and I was not a marijuana head. I tried it a couple times, didn't like it. I've got too much of a type 1 personality. I don't like losing control. But what I could see was the paranoia that would come up, because when you did, you always look, because what's it doing to me? Am I going to get in trouble? Well, how am I going to act? So if you have those parts of your personality to begin with, it's just going to amplify it. Let me tell you something else that disturbs me. Okay, and we're going to go back to when we approved medical marijuana in Florida. We were lied to back then too. People don't understand that medical marijuana has been available in Florida for years and years and years prior to this, but it had to be properly dosed by a doctor. Okay? The person that was greatly promoting it because of his brother's sickness and stuff, he was lying. That was available to his brother way back then. Okay? It had to be dosed properly. You couldn't go into the doctor's office and say, I want X number of percentage of THC in my medical marijuana. Like you can go into the stores right now. You get the card, you got $400, I'll get you a medical marijuana card. And then you can go pick what you want. That's not medical. I can't go to the pharmacy and the doctor's prescribing me X pain medication and tell the pharmacist how much of a dose I want. What does that make sense? And we're finding that same kind of misinformation out and about Amendment 3.
Absolutely. And when I came on in '94, the potency was about 4%, and now it's triple or quadruple now. So, and those effects have been really the fuel of national stories. And right now, Daniel Penny is on trial in New York City. He's the Marine who intervened on the subway train when Jordan Neely was having his episode. This is a young person who had known mental health issues, had THC in his system, and was treating his anxiety self-prescribed with as using marijuana and cannabis products to do that. And of course, that is absolutely the last thing that you want to do.
That's right. No, it's just there's so much misinformation. And why is there so much misinformation coming from the pro side? We all understand it. It's all about the money. You were telling me earlier, and prior to us sitting down here, that the latest numbers were like there's $100 million being spent.
More than that, yeah.
More than $100 million being spent to promote a yes vote. And why is that? Because the promoters are going to gain a whole lot more than that. So it's about the money. It's not about caring about people. It's not about helping people. That's not what it's about. It's about the money.
Well, even Amendment 4, which is on the ballot, Proposition 47 out in California, that changed the standards for theft and for bail and for bond and all those things out there, all those terrible laws that they're trying to undo out in California now.
Yeah.
They never made an investment like this, and so this is a forced push by an industry to use what's supposed to be reserved for our citizens to appeal to their government, to change our constitution. And Jeb Bush, when he was the governor of Florida, he made a point. He said, pregnant pigs don't belong in the state constitution. And just like pregnant pigs don't belong in the state constitution, neither does recreational marijuana. And it's really deceptive that they label this as recreational marijuana when it's really just if you if you vote no on it, nothing in Florida is going to change, and the legislature will probably make modifications to our marijuana laws that are going to be beneficial to people who would prefer that we had a more liberal marijuana stance on things. But it doesn't really change anything today because it's just a matter of money to go get your medical marijuana card, because there's a list of ailments and then there's other, and everybody falls under other. Yeah.
It's wacky, and you're right. Even using the word, like you said, recreational. What's going to happen? Okay. Again, I can remember back in the 60s and early 70s seeing some of my friends that were heavy users. And, if they got in a car, they were going to kill somebody. So it's the same as drinking too much and going about. The difficulty that I understand from law enforcement, you can confirm or not, is if there's what we would call a possible DUI, it's harder to check that, okay? If there's, say, erratic driving, something like that, and they get pulled over, unless you're smelling marijuana in the car, it's kind of difficult. I mean, there's testing that can be done, but it's not the same as alcohol.
It isn't the same as alcohol, but when we're pulling over a drunk driver, we don't know what's in their system either.
Right.
So to that tune, you make your case on the side of the road, and you make your case based on impairment. And impairment can be that somebody's just too drowsy to drive. Now, we generally wouldn't arrest on something like that. We really wouldn't go through the process of arresting somebody just because they were too tired to drive. But it does require law enforcement intervention. You're just as dangerous as a drunk driver. You can wake up, but but a person can't sober up, and they can't get this out of their system. And it's so on the side of the road, as far as that goes, we're going to find impairment. But when are we going to find the impairment? Are we going to find it after the accident? That's when we're going to find it. Just because they say horizontal gauge nystagmus test, if that's not working on you, when normally it causes a flickering of the eyeball when you bring the eyeball into the corner of the eye, if somebody's impaired on alcohol. If that doesn't work, it still doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter if the person doesn't blow 0.08 when they get to the breath alcohol testing machine. It matters that they were impaired, and that's the reason why those guys were the first ones to get in-car cameras.
Okay, excellent. And let me tell everybody out there something. I'm not against medical marijuana. I'm against the way we've done it. I understand that there are some legitimate things that marijuana can help in the medical field. But again, it's got to be properly dosed for specific areas and not free to do whatever you want. In the world that I live in and helping people in the world of recovery, I see the abuse of it. Because all you needed was X number of dollars. Think back, people, when Florida was the pill state, and what this possibility could cause our Florida become the pot state.
Right.
Not something I think we want to be labeled.
No, and it's more liberal than pretty much any of the other states that have legalized recreational marijuana. And marijuana is still a violation of federal law. I mean, we cannot get away from that. And no matter what your stance is, whether you're a libertarian or whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, there are legitimate purposes for the federal government, and one of those is to stop the importation of harmful items at our border. And that's one of the key reasons why we have the different schedules for different types of drugs. So marijuana is classified as a Schedule 1 drug. That means that it has a high propensity for abuse, that it's dangerous, and that it also has no known medical use or application. Now, what you, Mike, said is something that I agree with, because I know people that chemo patients that they take marijuana or THC infused items, and it helps with nausea, and helps them get through. Whether it does, whether it doesn't, first of all, I have no problem with that. I'm all for them being able to have access to that, if they even if they believe it helps them. But there have not been any widespread studies on the effectiveness of marijuana, and you're never going to go to be admitted to a hospital and have them say, you know what you're missing? You're missing some marijuana, and we're going to give some to you. And so that is the status medically of medical marijuana, is that it's being given to people kind of as an analgesic to like aspirin or something like that. So some of the people, they take aspirin and they think they feel better. Some of the people take aspirin and they do feel better. But really, that's all that matters, is that the people do feel better. Go ahead, Mike.
Let me ask you a question. How long ago, if you know, was marijuana classified as a class 1 drug?
I believe it was 1971,
Okay.
and it still is a class
So in
Schedule 1 drug.
1971, the value of, or the amount of THC in pot was about, would you say 3%?
Well, I'd say 3 to 4%. Yeah,
And now
it
it's
fluctuates.
now we're seeing it up in the 20s or higher
Right.
percentage weight. So they're talking about taking something that was believed back then at 3% is dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
and now they want to have it at 20% or so.
4 times, 5 times as much.
Okay,
As potent.
and say it's not dangerous.
Right.
Does that make any sense at all?
And that's you and I think in our conversations we've called the old pot the Woodstock pot. I like the Woodstock pot.
Yep.
I don't have a real problem with that. And one of the things we wanted to cover in here was really, there's been some misinformation about law enforcement and Amendment 3. You have sheriffs on doing commercials saying, well, this is going to free up the cops for some time. This is what we have cops for.
Mm-hmm.
This is every good cop, every great cop wants to go out there, wants to smell pot, and wants to use that as an investigative opportunity. And when I rode with our TAC units at night, I'd jump in with them, and we'd go out there. We'd do 20 stops an hour, and people would hand the pot through the window and would wish one another a good night. We'd put the pot in for destruction. It'd really take a seriously bad attitude for or violence to get somebody on the side of the road to start getting arrested or anything like that. But we'd have our lighthearted kind of encounter with folks, and generally and maybe it was even when it was over 20 grams. The difference between misdemeanor and felony is 20 grams. Even when it was over 20 grams, would be like, it doesn't feel like that on the side of the road. Let's just take it. We'll destroy it for you, and you can get on with your day. But it led us into so many other different investigative opportunities involving much more serious drugs, involving stolen credit cards. You'd have somebody that have 2 or 3 IDs. You'd have people in the car with them that were being held by force, fraud, or coercion, human trafficking. Would be able to introduce ourselves into those situations. Those would be good stops.
And those aren't going to stop if Amendment 3 is passed, because Amendment 3 is, if it gets passed, people are still going to have to buy it. So they're still going to have the money to do it, which means some of the folks out there who don't have the money are still going to do the things they shouldn't be doing to get the money.
Absolutely.
So it encompasses so much negative that this is not what we need now. Okay, we've got one of the largest populations in the country, which makes it more difficult to control things like this. We're on major thoroughfares. I mean, Sheriff Staley will tell you that they've already confiscated enough fentanyl to wipe out the entire county a couple of times.
Right.
So it's not going to stop that. It's not going to stop that. Okay, what's going to stop it? Okay, is now that we call the drug pusher somebody who should be arrested, we won't be doing that anymore.
Right.
The drug pusher is going to the bank legally and depositing the money he's taken from you.
Mm-hmm. And we do have to recognize that weed is addictive.
Yeah.
About a quarter of the people, a quarter of the users meet the conditions of cannabis use disorder. And that's bad. I mean, this is like something where it really changes somebody's life. I don't think we have that record with alcohol. Do you have 25% of all people who consume alcohol would be considered alcoholics? I hope not. I mean, I really don't think we do. I don't think we have anything close to that. There are some people, they don't handle alcohol very well, and they shouldn't have it. But a lot of people have even an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, but they're not alcoholics.
Yeah. My opinion, and this is opinion, I can't base it on scientific fact, but what I've seen over the years is the early days. Okay, you're talking about the Woodstock pot.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that was more of a mental addiction. Okay, people got hooked on the fact they wanted to feel this way, and they got that. With the amount of THC in there now, it's moved from mental to physical addiction.
Yes.
The body is calling for it, like it calls for any other drug. And there's where we run into the problem. And again, not everybody will have that. Okay, but you don't know if it's going to be you or not.
But nearly half of users experience withdrawal.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a clear marker. Then that's one of the troubling issues with it. And so the Obama administration attempted to move marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 themselves, and they went to it, and it goes to HHS, and it goes to DEA for that. So you'll find fentanyl is a Schedule 2 drug because it has an accepted medical use. I mean, it's prone to abuse and very dangerous. But there are those Schedule 2 drugs that have an established medical benefit. Those in Schedule 1 do not. And there was like a 5-point test. And this is some language that we heard when we were dealing with the vaccine, because two of these criteria, safe and effective, are how often did we hear that during the pandemic? We heard safe and effective over and over again. But the reason why they had to plug those things out there was because those are 2 out of the 5 categories in scheduling drugs or vaccines. So that's the reason why those were important. But we cannot prove that marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is either safe or effective. We can also say, just like we were talking about, it doesn't have, it can't be replicated. They can't replicate it. DEA said one of the issues is what is a dose? What is a dose? Because it's this kind of product that was nebulous. They're like, so it failed on all 5 during the Obama administration, and now they've issued a directive to the HHS, to the Secretary of HHS, said go get this thing reclassified to Schedule 3. Well, that's going to be huge, because then it's going to say that this has those things, but nothing has changed. Zero has changed since then, since the last time 12, 15, 16 years ago that it was looked at.
The science that they were basing the original decision on is still the same science as would be today.
And the substance is the same too.
Except it's stronger.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's really troubling like that.
Well, I've just been sitting. I've been sitting back. I've just been sitting back here, just amazed at the conversation, because I didn't think would go that in depth, and I'm really glad that we have, because I'm actually sitting back here learning quite a bit. My personal issue with the whole thing, the drug portion of it aside, is that we're talking about a constitutional amendment, and like you had said earlier, Mike, if we do a constitutional amendment and we down the road decide, we don't like this, getting it changed is going to be next to impossible. I mean, how much money, Clee, did you say that they were putting in right now?
Oh, they're more than $100 million.
So it's going to cost probably 3 times that if we wanted to get it off the Constitution.
It's actually more complicated than that. It's even more complicated than recycling batteries. It's like trying to get the eggs out of a cake that's been baked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that's the issue right there. That's what we're going to have to try to claw this thing out of there. And again, if we vote no on it, nothing happens. We can come back with a law that's good for the people instead of a law that's good for corporations. There's only one beneficiary from this, is corporations. One of the aspects of this is that they ban private cultivation. I like this.
That's stupid if they're going to allow it.
Exactly.
And I, you know, right there, I think is a point that most people just they haven't understood yet, is that if this gets passed, this doesn't mean you can have your own little pop field in your backyard.
Right.
You know, this is going to be permitted growers, and there's one that's pushing this very heavily that has the most permits to grow it. It's
Right.
obviously a money thing, but this isn't going to open up freedom to people to do what they want. This is going to open up, you know, corporate greed, and it's going to. I just see corporate greed and constitutional amendment in the same sentence being a real disaster down the road.
I agree.
For us.
But you know, from our first conversation, Mike and I had, I care about one thing more than anything else about this issue. It's the youth.
Yeah.
Why would we do this to our youth if we know that we're going to have worse outcomes for our youth? Why in the world would anybody vote for this? They don't show young people getting killed in the movies very much. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's because people don't like to see young people or young children being harmed or suffering. They'll move the camera away and just kind of let you know, oh yeah, he didn't make it. Yeah, but they will not show, you know, kids being blown apart in movies for this very reason. And so I care about the youth. If we know that this is coming and we know it's going to work out like this, and it's some of the kids are going to lose their lives by dabbing. Mike knows
Yeah.
what dabbing is.
Yeah.
That's when we're getting up to about between 90 and 100% THC. And then they're going down to the parking garage and jumping off the top of that one. Then you have the kids that lose their lives because they lose their ambition. I was watching a funny video recently, and it's a guy, he goes on Georgia college campuses, and before he asks people a few very simple questions, he asks them, how smart are you? And this one young lady, she says, probably a 5. I smoke a lot. But I mean, you watch the movie Ted, even in lighthearted settings, you see these people, and they're like, you know, there are things, how do you say it? There are strains of weed that they describe, which are like, has that van been across the street all night? You know, or help me get home is one of the names of the strands of weed. So you have, even in the pro weed culture, there's this acknowledgement that it doesn't make your life perfect. This isn't going to be something that's going to make you a better person. But we're going to lose kids just the same way that Colorado's losing kids, and that's losing them as homeless on the
Do
street.
your studying.
Yes.
Just you know, you can listen to us, and hopefully we're going to trigger the fact that you want to look more closely into it to see what we're saying is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just take the word of us, and certainly don't take the word of them. Go look and see what's happening in Colorado. They're not real happy with the decision they made, and they know how difficult it would be to reverse it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's get smart. I think I like what you're saying. Let's vote no now, and let's look at it deeper later to see if there's some benefits to do it in a certain way, but not open it up to anything you want. Nothing is out there that says you could have anything you want.
I think also if we look just even locally, and and it goes beyond locally, but I have some facts from locally. You know, there was the original, you know, this is your brain on drugs commercial that there used to be, and then big push to, you know, stop kids from smoking cigarettes. Big push to do that, and what they ended up doing was pushing them from cigarettes to vapes.
Right.
And you know, you got to be over 21 or 18, whatever it is, to buy a vape. But recently, one of our administrators for our school department here, John Finelli, a really great guy, was talking about how we have basically an epidemic in our school system of kids smoking vapes, which the dabs and so forth can be put into these vapes. So we have a vape that kids can't buy that we have an epidemic of them using. And if you think that pot's not going to follow down that same road, then you're just deluding yourself. It's going to go the same way.
Yeah, smart approaches to marijuana published today, and I think that the state that they used was Minnesota, and the youth emergency room visits just from kids accidentally getting into it and poisonings was up over 700% in 2 years. In 2 years, from 2022 to 2024. So this is something, as soon as we introduce it, it is going to have that effect. And I know that there are people that need to say no to this, that they think that this is what it's advertised as. It's not what it's advertised as. It's not something. If you think I want to keep a couple of hippies from sparking a joint and putting some shake in between some papers, you got me wrong. I really don't care. I think that that's harmless. I think that that's adults making their own decision. But when we start making decision like this in our state constitution, what we're doing is we're enabling this industry to harm our kids.
And you said it there. It's an industry.
Yes.
Okay? It's an industry. They're out to make the money. They don't care about the effects.
Right.
Okay? I can't remember which tobacco company it was, but I remember when cigarette smoking started going down, one of the major tobacco companies, I don't know if it was Reynolds or Phillips or whatever, bought Kraft food.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Be careful when you're eating mac and cheese from Kraft. You look at the ingredients, they're going to hold you, they're going to get you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. It's all about the money. It's not about providing something better for somebody. It just, I tell people when I go talk to them about drug court and the Drug Court Foundation, and I talk to business groups that are like some of our networking groups, and networking, you're looking to get more business. My conversation to them is, I'm not here looking for any new business.
Yeah.
Okay? I've never met somebody in the 12 years I've been doing this that decided they wanted to become a substance abuser.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Each and every one of them, no matter what the substance was, hooked them in some way. They were covering up pain, whatever the reason that they tried it. But it's just like, some of that is in your genes, your DNA, and it can go back 7 generations. So if you have people in your generations you don't even know that were addicted to something, you could become addicted. That switch you have control over, but you don't know about this switch, you can get hooked. That's why we see people that, and particularly I find in the world of alcohol, that if there's alcoholism in the family,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be very careful. And if you know about it, then you control the switch, turn on and off. This is the same thing. It can go back. And I know people are going to criticize me for all this, what I'm saying, but I don't really care. I care about our people. And like you said, I care dramatically about our youth.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because if the youth doesn't get what they need properly, they end up with me later on.
Right.
And I'm not looking for new customers.
No.
Yeah.
So this is.
Well, we're just past a half hour, and I think this is a conversation really that needs to go on and have more conversations even after this election is over. I think education for the youth, education for the adults, everything, it needs to continue on. And I want to close it out here shortly, but what I'd like to say is that I'd really like to have actually both of you back, because the discussion that was going on, I'm just sitting back here amazed, and I know that the audience that's going to be listening to this will also be equally amazed. And so I'd like to invite you as a group to come back again and do this again. So let me ask you if you have any last things, any other points you'd like to get out before we close it out.
One of the advertisements is talking about the money going to schools and going to cops, and there's nothing in the amendment about that. There's nothing in the amendment about that. And the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City did a study, and they found that, and we're not talking about intangible social costs like, oh, well, I saw this over here and that. No. Fundamental, tangible social costs for every tax dollar that was raised by this, there was going to be a cost, a financial cost of $4.50.
So $4.50 for every dollar.
Right. For every dollar. For 450 cents out for every dollar that comes in. And it makes no sense whatsoever from a financial perspective, at least, but just from a moral perspective, and our youth right now, they have enough challenges. We have a lot of kids who have never had so many kids that have anxiety, depression, and the last thing that they need in their lives, in their worlds, impeding them from progress and impeding them from becoming successful adults, is a product that mixes very poorly with anxiety and depression.
I think you're right. And I think that probably will close us up tonight. And Alan, I thank you for saying it. We've got to continue this education in our community about the whole substance abuse is vital. It's one of the things that the Drug Court Foundation has expanded into beyond helping the people in the program. When we got the first grant to give the Narcan away, and now we've been educating the community. We got it into the Flagler County school system, so they're now set up for it. But educating, because we talked to people at different events, and they had no clue. They have no clue. We're presenting, Flagler County as this beautiful place, which it is. But they're presenting it as we have no problems. And that ain't the truth. But if you educate them, we can reduce the problems.
Yeah, I believe you're right, Mike. It's our big lacking issue is education. And sadly, a lot of people don't want to be educated on the issues. They just want to hide and go on in their, natural and little life. But it can't be that way.
This is a topic that's not always welcome for people to listen to.
Sure.
And about, because it's not a happy topic.
And sometimes it hits home too hard.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. When we were the second highest overdose death county, in the state, based on the 67 counties and based on our population, there was a lot of folks that got really hurt and damaged that year.
Yeah.
And we see them. We talk to them. We have several people on our Drug Court Foundation who have lost children and family members, and they've now dedicated their lives to help people so they don't have to go through that. But you can see what they've been through.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there. I don't know anybody else that wants to be there. This is one of the things that can help reduce that. Vote no.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Vote no.
And we're in an age where we've never seen so much damage and devastation being caused by drugs, and I can't imagine that anybody who is aware of that would think that drug liberalization at this time would be even a wise idea or anything to be considered.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, it hasn't really worked in any of the states that have done it. They're now wishing they hadn't done it. The homelessness and everything that it has sparked off in their downtown city areas and everything.
One thing on there, because you'll get people saying, well, look what's happening in like Portugal and places like that have liberalized it. But they're small, they can control it, and they've taken the funds to help people recover. So as they've liberalized it, they're also working on the reduction of drug addiction. This doesn't do that.
No, this just works on the bank account of the corporations.
So don't come and talk to me about, well, look what it does over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're bigger. Florida is bigger than most of those countries that have
Right.
themselves that have liberalized it.
Yeah.
And we can't control it here. We got too much going on.
Right. Well, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in tonight. I hope you've learned something. I hope you vote no. In fact, I hope you vote no on all the amendments, but specifically on Amendment 3. Well, actually, it's 1, 3, and 4 you absolutely have to vote no on, and 1 being the city's Amendment 1. Beyond that, though, the real important thing is to become educated, to understand what's going on, and once you become educated, educate your friends and your neighbors so that we can get the word out and we can get more information to a whole lot more people. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. We're going to be back next Friday, and who knows who our guest will be. So tune in. Thank you. Appreciate it. Like, share, and have a fantastic week.
Go ye and